Maya Chen stared at the acceptance letter floating in front of her neural interface, the holographic text shimmering with the prestigious seal of the Galactic Defense Academy. Her hands trembled slightly as she read the words again. After 3 failed attempts, she had finally been accepted into the most elite military institution in the known galaxy. The letter didn't mention her test scores, which she knew were barely above the minimum threshold. It didn't mention her unremarkable physical assessments or her average tactical simulations. What it did mention was a special scholarship program for diverse candidates from developing worlds. Maya winced at the phrase. Even her acceptance felt like charity. Around her, the cramped quarters of mining station Zeta 7 hummed with the constant vibration of ore extractors. Her parents worked 16-hour shifts in the asteroid belt, scraping together enough credits to survive. The station housed mostly humans, a few Centauri traders, and the occasional Vegan diplomat passing through. It was hardly the breeding ground for galactic heroes. Maya's roommate Zara burst through the door, her blue-tinged Centauri skin gleaming with excitement. "Did you hear? Commander Vexthal himself is visiting the academy next month. They say he's looking for new recruits for the elite guard." She paused, noticing Maya's expression. "What's wrong? You look like you've seen a ghost." Maya quickly dismissed the hologram. "Nothing. Just thinking about the academy. You're still going, right? I mean, it's the GDA. Even if you wash out in the first semester, you'll have connections for life." The casual assumption that Maya would fail stung, but she forced a smile. "Of course I'm going." That night, Maya packed her few belongings into a standard-issue duffel bag. Her parents had already said their goodbyes during their brief meal break, offering proud smiles and worried glances in equal measure. Her father had pressed a small device into her hands, a modified communicator that could reach across star systems without going through official channels. "In case you need us," he'd said simply, as Maya prepared for sleep. She activated her personal datapad and scrolled through the Academy's public files. The student roster read like a who's who of galactic nobility. Crown Prince Zareth of the Andromedan Empire, Lady Sylvia Blackstone, daughter of the Federation's Supreme Admiral, Kethmore the Destroyer's youngest son. Each name came with achievements that made Maya feel smaller. She almost deleted her acceptance when she stumbled across a video interview with Admiral Sarah Rodriguez, the Academy's first human graduate nearly 2 centuries ago. Rodriguez sat behind a simple desk, her gray hair pulled back in a regulation bun, her brown eyes sharp and intelligent. "People ask me what advice I'd give to new cadets," Rodriguez said. "I tell them this. The galaxy doesn't care about your bloodline or your planet's reputation. It cares about what you do when everything seems impossible. Humans have a saying, 'It's not the size of the dog in the fight, it's the size of the fight in the dog.' Remember that." Maya closed the pad and lay back on her narrow bunk. Through the small porthole, she could see the distant blue glow of Earth's sun. Tomorrow, she would board a transport ship, bound for the Academy's location in the Nexus system, 3 weeks away by standard hyperspace travel. She thought about her secret, the one thing that might change everything if anyone discovered it. Hidden beneath her modest clothing and unremarkable appearance was something that could revolutionize warfare itself. But for now, she was just Maya Chen from mining station Zeta 7, a charity case accepted to fill diversity quotas. The irony wasn't lost on her. The most powerful military academy in the galaxy was about to welcome someone they considered their weakest candidate. Maya smiled in the darkness. If they wanted to underestimate humans, she would let them. After all, some of the greatest victories in history had come from those no one saw coming. The transport departure alarm echoed through the station's corridors. Maya grabbed her bag and headed toward the docking bay, where her new life awaited. Behind her, the mining equipment continued its endless rhythm, and her parents continued their thankless work. Ahead lay the unknown, filled with challenges that would test everything she thought she knew about herself. As the transport's engines powered up, Maya took one last look at the only home she'd ever known. The academy expected her to fail, her classmates would likely ignore her, and the instructors would probably see her as a quota filler. Perfect. The best warriors throughout history had always fought from the shadows, and Maya intended to honor that tradition. The ship lurched into hyperspace, carrying its unsuspecting passenger toward a destiny that would reshape the balance of power in the galaxy. For now, though, Maya was content to be overlooked. It would make her eventual revelation all the more devastating to those who dared to underestimate humanity's potential. 3 weeks later, she would step off the transport and into the Academy's gleaming halls, carrying with her not just the hopes of her family, but a secret that could change the course of galactic history. The other students might have noble blood and famous names, but Maya had something far more dangerous: the desperate determination of someone with nothing left to lose and everything to prove. The Galactic Defense Academy rose from the surface of Nexus Prime like a crystalline mountain, its towers reaching toward the planet's 3 moons. Maya pressed her face against the transport's viewport, watching as the massive structure grew larger with each passing moment. Starships of every design imaginable filled the Academy's airspace: sleek Andromedan cruisers, bulky Terran destroyers, and the elegant needle ships favored by the Vegan Confederacy. Maya's transport was a basic civilian hauler, its hull scarred from years of commercial use. Among the gleaming military vessels, it looked like a rust bucket. Several other ships carried new cadets, but theirs were private yachts and diplomatic transports that screamed wealth and privilege. "Attention, passengers," the pilot's voice crackled through the comm system. "We are beginning our descent to Academy Station Alpha. Please secure all belongings and prepare for atmospheric entry." Maya checked her duffel bag for the 100th time, making sure the small device her father had given her was safely tucked away. Around her, other passengers chatted excitedly about their upcoming enrollment. She recognized a few voices from the Academy's promotional materials: children of senators, military dynasties, and corporate titans. The transport shuddered as it entered the Academy's docking bay. Through the viewports, Maya caught glimpses of the interior: polished metal corridors stretching in every direction, holographic displays showing star charts and tactical scenarios, and cadets in crisp uniforms moving with military precision. When the airlock finally opened, Maya found herself swept along with the crowd of new arrivals. The docking bay buzzed with activity as families said their farewells and servants unloaded mountains of luggage. Maya's single bag felt almost embarrassing in comparison. "Welcome to the Galactic Defense Academy." A tall Andromedan officer stood at attention near the main entrance, his blue skin marked with the ritual scars of a warrior caste. "I am Commander Thexval, your orientation officer. Please form orderly lines according to your dormitory assignments." Maya checked her datapad and joined the queue for Dormitory Block 7. The other students in her line looked equally nervous, though their nervousness seemed to stem from excitement rather than the deep-seated fear that gnawed at Maya's stomach. "First time off-world?" asked a cheerful voice beside her. Maya turned to see a young Centauri woman with intricate tattoos covering her arms. "I'm Naya Stormwind. My father commands the Third Rim Fleet." "Maya Chen," she replied, trying to keep her voice steady. "From mining station Zeta 7. Naya's expression didn't change, but Maya caught the slight pause that indicated she was accessing the station's information through her neural implant. "Oh, that's in the asteroid belt near Sol, right? How interesting. I've never met anyone from the mining colonies before." The way she said interesting made it sound like Maya was an exotic specimen rather than a fellow cadet. Maya forced a smile and nodded, then focused her attention on Commander Thexval as he began addressing the group. "Cadets, you are about to embark on the most challenging 4 years of your lives," the Andromedan announced. "The Academy's curriculum is designed to push you beyond your perceived limitations. Many of you will not graduate. Those who do will join the ranks of the galaxy's most elite defenders." He gestured toward the Academy's interior. "Your dormitory assignments are final. Your study groups have been carefully selected to promote interspecies cooperation. Your daily schedule begins at 0500 Standard Time and ends when your instructors determine you have learned enough for one day." Maya's throat went dry. She had known the Academy would be demanding, but the reality was beginning to sink in. Around her, some of the other cadets shifted nervously, while others maintained confident expressions that suggested they had been preparing for this moment their entire lives. "One final note," Commander Thexval continued. "The Academy operates under a strict honor code. Cheating, lying, or stealing will result in immediate expulsion. However, strategic thinking, creative problem-solving, and the ability to adapt under pressure are highly valued. The difference between cleverness and dishonesty is something you will need to learn to navigate." The group was led through a series of gleaming corridors lined with portraits of famous graduates. Maya recognized Admiral Rodriguez's stern face among them, but most of the others were alien species she couldn't identify. The message was clear. This was a place where legends were born. Dormitory Block 7 turned out to be surprisingly modest compared to the Academy's public areas. The rooms were small but efficient, with a bed, desk, and storage unit for each cadet. Maya's roommate assignment was posted on the door. Kira Vexthul. Maya's blood ran cold. Vexthul was one of the most prominent military families in the galaxy. Kira had to be related to Commander Vexthul, the war hero whose tactical innovations had saved countless lives during the Outer Rim conflicts. When Maya entered the room, she found a tall, imposing figure unpacking what looked like enough equipment to outfit a small army. Kira Vexthul was everything Maya had expected. Perfectly groomed, expensively dressed, and radiating the kind of confidence that came from a lifetime of privilege. "You must be my roommate," Kira said without looking up. "I specifically requested a single room, but apparently the Academy believes in character building through shared adversity." She finally turned to face Maya, her golden eyes scanning her new roommate with obvious disappointment. "I suppose you'll do. Try not to touch my things." Maya set her bag on the unoccupied bed and began unpacking her meager belongings. Kira watched with barely concealed amusement as Maya pulled out her few changes of clothes and basic toiletries. "Is that all you brought?" Kira asked. "Where's your tactical gear? Your neural enhancement interface? Your personal weapons collection?" "I assume the Academy provides what we need," Maya replied quietly. Kira laughed, a sound devoid of warmth. "Oh, you sweet naive thing. The Academy provides the basics. Anyone serious about succeeding brings their own equipment. My parents spent more on my preparation kit than most people earn in a year." Maya turned back to her unpacking, refusing to let Kira see how the words stung. She had known she would be at a disadvantage, but the reality was more overwhelming than she had imagined. Every other cadet seemed to have advantages she couldn't even comprehend. That evening, the first-year cadets gathered in the main assembly hall for an orientation dinner. Maya found herself seated at a table with other scholarship students. A nervous human boy from the outer colonies, a quiet vegan girl whose family had been refugees, and a centauri whose parents worked as translators for the diplomatic corps. At the head table, the Academy's senior staff observed the new arrivals with keen interest. Maya noticed several instructors making notes on data pads as they watched the cadets interact. Everything here was a test, she realized. Even casual conversations were being evaluated and scored. As the evening progressed, Maya began to understand the complex social hierarchy that governed Academy life. The children of admirals and politicians naturally gravitated toward each other, forming exclusive clusters that radiated power and influence. The scholarship students, meanwhile, seemed to fade into the background, grateful to be present but clearly not expected to excel. Maya smiled to herself as she watched the dynamics play out. Let them establish their pecking order based on family names and trust funds. She had something none of them possessed. The burning motivation of someone who had clawed her way up from nothing. And hidden beneath her unremarkable exterior was a secret that would eventually shake the very foundations of everything they thought they knew about warfare. For now, though she was content to remain invisible, tomorrow, the real challenges would begin. And Maya intended to show these privileged cadets exactly what human determination could accomplish when properly motivated. The alarm that pierced through Dormitory Block 7 at 0500 hours sounded like a dying animal. Maya bolted upright in her narrow bunk, her heart hammering against her ribs. Across the room, Kira was already standing beside her bed, fully dressed in a crisp Academy uniform that looked like it had been tailored by master craftsmen. "How are you already ready?" Maya mumbled, fumbling for her own uniform in the dim light. "I've been waking up at 0430 since I was 12. Kira replied with obvious pride. Discipline begins with the morning routine, something they clearly don't teach on mining stations. Maya bit back her response and focused on getting dressed. Her uniform was standard issue, functional but unremarkable. Beside Kira's perfectly fitted ensemble, it looked like exactly what it was: charity clothing for charity students. The Academy's main courtyard buzzed with activity as hundreds of cadets assembled for morning formation. Maya found her assigned position among the first-year students, surrounded by aliens whose names she was still learning to pronounce. The air crackled with nervous energy and barely contained excitement. "Welcome to your first day of real training," announced Colonel Drathmore. a massive Andromedan whose voice carried across the courtyard without amplification. Today you will participate in your first tactical simulation. This exercise will establish your baseline capabilities and determine your preliminary class rankings. Maya's stomach dropped. Rankings on the first day seemed impossibly cruel, but she forced herself to maintain a neutral expression. Around her, several cadets exchanged confident glances, clearly relishing the opportunity to establish their dominance early. You will be divided into teams of 5, Colonel Drathmore continued. Each team will be assigned a scenario involving hostile forces and limited resources. Your objective is simple: complete your mission while keeping your team alive. Failure means remedial training. Success means advancement to the intermediate curriculum. The teams were announced over the Academy's public address system. Maya found herself assigned to Team 7 along with Kira, the nervous human boy named Marcus Webb, a vegan girl called Lyra Moonwhisper, and a centauri named Zeph Ironscale, whose family apparently manufactured weapons for the Federation Navy. Well, this should be interesting, Kira said as the team gathered around their assigned briefing station. 1 scholarship case, 1 refugee, 1 tradesman's son, and me. I suppose they want to see how leadership emerges under adverse conditions. Maya bit her tongue again. Kira's assumption that she would naturally take command was grating, but arguing would only confirm every stereotype about desperate scholarship students. Instead, Maya focused on the mission briefing that appeared on their shared holographic display. The scenario was deceptively simple. Their team had been deployed to a remote outpost that had gone silent. Initial scans suggested possible hostile activity, but communication blackouts made detailed intelligence impossible. Their objectives were to investigate the outpost, neutralize any threats, and extract any survivors. Standard reconnaissance mission, Kira announced, already taking charge. I'll lead the assault team with Zeph. Marcus and Lyra can handle technical support. Maya, you can watch our backs, I suppose. Maya studied the mission parameters more carefully while Kira outlined her strategy. The outpost's layout was complex with multiple levels and numerous blind spots. The available equipment included basic weapons, scanning devices, and emergency medical supplies. Most importantly, the simulation would adapt based on their actions, meaning rigid planning could become a liability. Actually, Maya said quietly, I think we should consider a different approach. Kira turned to her with obvious annoyance. Oh, and what vast tactical experience are you drawing from? The outpost has 17 different entry points, Maya replied, ignoring the sarcasm. If we go in as a single assault team, we're basically announcing our presence. But if we split into smaller units and coordinate our approach, we can gather intelligence while maintaining tactical flexibility. Zeph nodded thoughtfully. She has a point. My family's weapons division always emphasizes the value of information over firepower. I disagree, Kira said firmly. Splitting our forces makes us vulnerable. A concentrated assault gives us the best chance of overwhelming any resistance. Maya could see that Kira's ego was invested in her original plan, but she also recognized the tactical flaws that would likely doom their mission. The simulation was designed to test adaptive thinking, not brute force approaches. What if we compromise? Marcus suggested nervously. Maya and I could scout the perimeter while the rest of you prepare for the main assault. That way we get intelligence without sacrificing our combat strength. It wasn't perfect, but it was better than Kira's original plan. Maya nodded her agreement, and even Kira seemed willing to accept the modification. The simulation began in a virtual environment so realistic that Maya momentarily forgot she was in a training facility. The outpost appeared on a rocky plateau surrounded by dense vegetation, its communication arrays dark and silent. Emergency lighting flickered in some windows, suggesting the base still had power but was operating under distress conditions. Maya and Marcus circled the perimeter while the others waited at the primary entrance. Through her scanner, Maya detected multiple heat signatures inside the building, but their patterns were irregular. Some remained stationary for long periods, while others moved in ways that suggested either injury or concealment. I'm seeing possible survivors on the second level, Maya reported through their team communication channel, but there's also movement in the lower levels that doesn't match human signatures. Confirmed, Marcus added. Whatever hit this place, it didn't completely destroy the garrison, but it definitely left something behind. Kira's voice crackled through their earpieces. Understood. We're beginning our assault, Stay in position and report any changes. Maya watched through her scope as Kira led Zeph and Lyra through the main entrance. Their approach was textbook perfect. Careful advancement, proper cover discipline, excellent communication. For several minutes, everything proceeded smoothly. Then the screaming started. Contact! Contact! Kira's voice was tight with panic. We've got multiple hostiles on the ground floor. They're not showing up on sensors. Some kind of stealth technology. Maya's mind raced as she processed the information. Invisible enemies, trapped survivors, and a team leader who was clearly struggling to adapt to changing circumstances. The simulation was testing their ability to handle the unexpected, and Kira's rigid tactical mindset was failing under pressure. Marcus, can you get us into the building through one of the maintenance shafts? Maya asked. I think so. Why? Because we're going to save our team. Maya had already identified the simulation's real test. It wasn't about following proper procedures or demonstrating tactical knowledge from textbooks. It was about improvisation under pressure, the willingness to abandon established plans when reality demanded adaptation. As she and Marcus worked their way into the building's service tunnels, Maya allowed herself a small smile. Kira might have superior equipment and formal training, but Maya had something more valuable, the hard-earned wisdom that came from growing up in an environment where survival depended on thinking 3 steps ahead of disaster. The invisible enemies were about to discover that underestimating humans was a mistake they would only make once. The maintenance tunnels beneath the outpost reeked of recycled air and industrial lubricants. Maya crawled through the narrow passages with Marcus close behind, their movement muffled by the building's ambient noise. Through the metal grating above them, they could hear the sounds of combat, energy weapon discharges, shouted commands, and the distinctive whine of Federation emergency shields under stress. Maya, we should call for instructor intervention, Marcus whispered, his voice tight with fear. Kira and the others could be seriously hurt. It's a simulation, Maya replied, though she shared his concern. The safety protocols won't let anyone get actually injured, but their performance scores are definitely taking a beating right now. She paused at a junction in the tunnel system, consulting the facility schematics on her scanner. The outpost design was more complex than their initial briefing had suggested, with multiple sublevels and interconnected service corridors that offered numerous tactical opportunities for anyone willing to think creatively. There, Maya pointed to a section of the tunnel that ran directly beneath the main garrison area. If we can access the building's environmental controls from here, we might be able to even the odds. Marcus looked skeptical. How is adjusting the air conditioning going to help? Maya was already working on the access panel, her fingers flying across the holographic interface. Years of maintaining life support systems on mining station Zeta-7 had given her an intimate understanding of how environmental controls could be weaponized. These stealth creatures rely on thermal masking to avoid detection. But if we flood the area with infrared countermeasures, the environmental system responded to her commands, pumping specialized atmospheric additives into the garrison area. Within moments, Kira's panicked voice crackled through their communication channel with new information. The hostiles are becoming visible. Repeat, we can now target the hostiles. They appear to be some kind of energy-based construct. Maya smiled grimly. Energy constructs were notoriously vulnerable to environmental manipulation, a fact that apparently hadn't occurred to her teammates during their initial tactical assessment. While Kira had been planning a frontal assault, Maya had been considering the fundamental nature of their opponents. That's phase 1, she told Marcus. Now we need to reach the survivors before our teammates accidentally kill them. The survivor signatures were clustered on the outpost's second level, in what appeared to be a sealed medical bay. Maya's scanner indicated that the area was isolated from the main building, suggesting the survivors had managed to establish a safe zone before being trapped by the attacking constructs. Maya and Marcus emerged from the tunnel system into a maintenance closet on the second floor. The corridors here were eerily quiet, lit only by emergency lighting that cast long shadows across the walls. Maya's scanner showed no immediate threats, but she remained alert as they moved toward the medical bay. The door's been sealed from the inside, Marcus observed, studying the heavy blast barrier that blocked their path. I don't think we can cut through it with our equipment. Maya examined the door's control panel, noting the emergency lockdown protocols that had been activated. Standard procedure would require command authorization to override the seal, but Maya had learned long ago that standard procedures were often less creative than necessary. "We don't need to cut through it," she said, accessing her father's modified communicator. "We just need to talk to whoever's inside." The device her father had given her was more sophisticated than its humble appearance suggested. Within moments, Maya had established a direct communication link with the survivors in the medical bay. "This is Cadet Maya Chen of the Galactic Defense Academy," she said into the device. "Please respond if you can hear this transmission." A weak voice crackled through the speaker. "Academy. Thank the stars. This is Dr. Sarah Martinez, Senior Medical Officer. We have 12 survivors in here, but our communication systems were damaged in the initial attack. Dr. Martinez, we're here to extract your people, but we need to coordinate with the tactical team currently engaging the hostiles on the ground floor. Can you give us any information about the attacking force?" "They appeared out of nowhere about 6 hours ago," Dr. Martinez replied. "Some kind of energy-based entities that could phase in and out of visible spectrum. Our weapons were useless until we managed to modify our medical scanners to emit a specific frequency that disrupted their stealth capabilities." Maya's eyes widened. The survivors had already discovered the key to defeating the constructs, but they had been trapped before they could share their knowledge with the outside world. If she could relay this information to Kira's team, "Marcus, patch me through to the team channel," Maya ordered. "Kira, this is Maya. I'm in contact with the survivors. They've discovered that the constructs are vulnerable to specific frequency emissions. If you can modify your scanners to emit a broadband disruption signal." "Already tried it." Kira's voice was strained with exhaustion. "We're running low on power cells, and these things keep adapting to our countermeasures. Whatever you're doing with the environmental systems is helping, but we need a more permanent solution." Maya considered their options. The simulation was clearly designed to test their ability to integrate multiple solution approaches, rather than relying on any single tactical advantage. Kira's team had the firepower, the survivors had the technical knowledge, and Maya had the environmental control access. Success would require coordination between all three groups. "Dr. Martinez, we need to get your people out of the medical bay and linked up with our tactical team. Do you have any way to defend yourselves during a corridor movement?" "We've jerry-rigged some of our medical equipment into makeshift weapons," the doctor replied. "Nothing sophisticated, but enough to discourage close approach. The real problem is that we're 12 floors up with no working elevators." Maya studied the building schematics again, looking for alternative routes. The maintenance tunnel system extended throughout the building, but most of the passages were too narrow for group movement. However, there was one possibility. "The emergency evacuation chutes," she told Marcus. "They're designed to handle multiple personnel in crisis situations." Working together, Maya and Marcus managed to override the evacuation system's safety protocols and establish a controlled descent route from the medical bay to the ground floor. It wasn't elegant, but it would allow the survivors to reach safety while Kira's team provided covering fire. The next 20 minutes were controlled chaos as Maya coordinated between 3 separate groups while maintaining her environmental countermeasures. The survivors began their descent through the evacuation system, Dr. Martinez sharing her technical discoveries with Kira's team via Maya's communication relay. By the time the simulation ended, Team 7 had successfully extracted all survivors and neutralized the hostile constructs. More importantly, they had demonstrated the kind of adaptive cooperation that the Academy's instructors were looking for. As the virtual environment faded around them, Maya found herself standing in the Academy's simulation center, surrounded by her teammates and a group of evaluating instructors. Kira looked exhausted but grudgingly impressed, while Marcus beamed with the satisfaction of someone who had exceeded his own expectations. "Interesting approach," Cadet Chen, Colonel Drathmore noted, reviewing the simulation data on his tablet. "Your environmental manipulation strategy was particularly creative. Most cadets focus exclusively on direct confrontation." Maya nodded respectfully, trying not to show how pleased she was with the praise. Around them, other teams were finishing their own simulations, some with obvious success and others with equally obvious failure. The preliminary rankings wouldn't be posted until the next day, but Maya was confident that Team 7 had performed well enough to avoid remedial training. More importantly, she had begun to establish herself as someone worth watching, even if her teammates still didn't fully understand what they had witnessed. As they walked back to the dormitories, Kira fell into step beside her. "That was good tactical thinking in there," she said quietly. I may have underestimated your capabilities. Maybe, Maya replied with a slight smile. Or maybe you're just beginning to see what humans can do when we're properly motivated. 3 weeks into the academy semester, Maya had settled into a routine that balanced academic excellence with deliberate mediocrity. Her test scores remained consistently in the upper middle range, good enough to avoid attention, but not so exceptional as to draw unwanted scrutiny. Meanwhile, her practical skills continued to impress instructors who expected scholarship students to struggle with hands-on applications. The morning tactical briefing felt different from the usual classroom exercises. Commander Vexthul himself stood at the front of the lecture hall, his legendary presence commanding absolute attention from the assembled cadets. Maya had heard stories about the Andromedan war hero since childhood. His innovative strategies had revolutionized modern warfare, and his tactical insights were studied throughout the galaxy. Today, you will participate in a full-scale wargame, Commander Vexthul announced, his voice carrying easily through the vast chamber. This exercise will pit half of your class against the other half in a simulated planetary invasion scenario. The stakes are higher than your previous training. Performance in this exercise will determine your track assignments for the remainder of the semester. Maya felt her pulse quicken. Track assignments would determine whether cadets focused on command, engineering, intelligence, or support roles. Students who excelled in war games typically earned placement in the prestigious command track, while those who struggled often found themselves relegated to logistics or administration. The scenario is as follows. Commander Vexthul continued, activating a massive holographic display that showed a detailed planetary surface. The planet Kepler 442b has been invaded by a hostile alien force. The defending team must organize planetary resistance while the attacking team attempts to establish total control of strategic objectives. The planet's geography was complex and varied. Urban centers connected by transportation networks, military installations scattered across multiple continents, and vast wilderness areas that could conceal guerrilla operations. Maya studied the terrain carefully, already formulating potential strategies. Team assignments are posted on your personal datapads, Commander Vexthul said. You have 2 hours to organize your forces and develop your operational plans. The simulation begins at 1400 hours and will continue until one side achieves decisive victory, or 72 simulation hours have elapsed. Maya checked her assignment and felt her stomach drop. She had been placed on the attacking team under the command of Prince Zareth of the Andromedan Empire. Zareth was everything Maya was not: aristocratic, charismatic, and supremely confident in his tactical abilities. More problematically, he was also known for favoring traditional assault strategies that relied heavily on superior firepower and technological advantages. The attacking team assembled in War Room Alpha, a sophisticated command center equipped with real-time tactical displays and direct communication links to simulated military units. Prince Zareth stood at the head of the conference table, his royal bearing enhanced by an academy uniform that had clearly been customized by master tailors. Our objective is simple, Zareth announced to the 30 cadets under his command. We will establish orbital supremacy, neutralize the planet's defensive installations, and secure the primary population centers. Once we control the major urban areas, organized resistance will collapse. Maya listened to the strategy briefing with growing concern. Zareth's plan was textbook perfect and completely predictable. Any competent defender would anticipate exactly this approach and prepare accordingly. Worse, the plan made no allowance for adaptive responses if the initial assault encountered unexpected resistance. Your Highness, said Cadet Blackstone, daughter of Supreme Admiral Blackstone, what contingencies do we have if the defenders retreat to the wilderness areas and initiate guerrilla operations? Zareth waved dismissively. Insurgent activities are a minor nuisance compared to conventional military operations. Once we control the infrastructure, any remaining resistance will be isolated and ineffective. Maya bit her tongue, remembering her father's stories about the asteroid miners' strike that had lasted 3 years despite overwhelming corporate opposition. Guerrilla warfare wasn't about controlling territory. It was about making occupation so costly that the occupiers eventually gave up. But pointing this out would likely brand her as a troublemaker who didn't understand proper military doctrine. Instead, she focused on the detailed intelligence reports that were streaming in from their simulated reconnaissance units. The defending team, led by Kira Vexthul, was already implementing interesting countermeasures. Military units were dispersing from their obvious bases, civilian populations were being evacuated from likely target areas, and communication networks were being hardened against electronic warfare. "Your Highness," Maya said carefully, "the intelligence reports suggest the defenders are implementing a defense-in-depth strategy, rather than trying to hold fixed positions." "Perhaps we should consider—" "Cadet Chen," Zareth interrupted, his tone politely condescending. "I appreciate your enthusiasm, but strategic planning requires experience that comes from proper military education. Your role in this exercise is to follow orders and learn from your betters." Several other cadets snickered at the rebuke, and Maya felt her cheeks burn with embarrassment. But she also noticed that a few of the more thoughtful students were studying the intelligence reports with obvious concern. Zareth's dismissive attitude toward unconventional warfare might prove to be a significant weakness. The simulation began with a massive orbital bombardment that eliminated most of the defending team's obvious military installations. Zareth's forces achieved all their initial objectives ahead of schedule, seizing spaceports, communication centers, and government facilities with ruthless efficiency. "Excellent work," Zareth declared after the first 6 hours of simulated combat. "At this rate, we'll have complete victory within 24 hours. Maya studied the tactical displays more carefully and noticed troubling patterns. While Zareth's forces controlled all the major population centers, they were also spread dangerously thin across the planet's surface. The defending team had lost their conventional military capabilities, but their scattered units were beginning to regroup in the wilderness areas that Zareth had dismissed as irrelevant. "Your Highness," she tried again, "our supply lines are becoming increasingly vulnerable. The defenders are positioning themselves to interdict our logistics convoys. Our air superiority makes supply interdiction impossible," Zareth replied confidently. "They have no effective anti-aircraft capabilities remaining." Within hours, Zareth's assessment proved catastrophically wrong. The defending team had been secretly constructing improvised surface-to-air missile systems using materials salvaged from the destroyed military installations. Maya watched in fascination as Kira's forces began systematically targeting the attacking team's aircraft and supply convoys. By the end of the first simulation day, Zareth's seemingly decisive victory was beginning to unravel. His forces controlled the cities, but they were running low on ammunition and fuel. Meanwhile, the defending team was growing stronger as more civilian populations joined the resistance movement. "This is impossible," Zareth muttered, staring at reports of another successful ambush against his supply convoys. "They don't have the resources to sustain this level of activity." Maya could have explained that resource scarcity actually favored the defenders in this type of conflict, but she knew Zareth wouldn't listen. Instead, she quietly began developing alternative strategies that might salvage their deteriorating position. The key insight came when she realized that Zareth was fighting the wrong war entirely. He was trying to win a conventional military victory against an opponent who had already transitioned to insurgent tactics. Success would require a completely different approach, one that focused on winning hearts and minds rather than destroying enemy forces. But suggesting such a radical strategy shift would require challenging Prince Zareth's authority in front of their entire team. Maya weighed her options carefully, knowing that her next decision could determine not just the outcome of the exercise, but her entire future at the academy. The war game was about to become far more interesting than anyone had anticipated. By the second day of the war game, Prince Zareth's forces were hemorrhaging supplies and morale at an alarming rate. Every convoy that left the secured urban areas faced ambushes from Kira's increasingly sophisticated resistance network. Worse, civilian populations in the occupied cities were beginning to actively support the insurgents, providing intelligence and safe houses that made traditional counterinsurgency operations nearly impossible. Maya watched the tactical displays with growing frustration as Zareth continued to order conventional military responses to unconventional threats. His latest directive called for mass arrests of suspected collaborators, a strategy that would only increase civilian resentment and drive more recruits into the resistance movement. "Your Highness," Cadet Blackstone said carefully, "perhaps we should consider modifying our approach. The current strategy seems to be generating more opposition than it's eliminating." Zareth's golden eyes flashed with irritation. "The strategy is sound, The problem is poor execution by our field commanders. Order them to increase security sweeps and tighten perimeter controls around all major installations. Maya could no longer remain silent. Your Highness, with respect, we're not fighting a conventional military force anymore. Every harsh measure we implement drives more civilians into active resistance. We need to change our fundamental approach. The war room fell silent as every cadet turned to stare at Maya, challenging a superior officer's strategy in front of the entire command staff was tantamount to insubordination, exactly the kind of behavior that could result in immediate dismissal from the academy. Cadet Chen, Zareth's voice was dangerously quiet. Are you suggesting that centuries of proven military doctrine are incorrect? I'm suggesting that military doctrine should adapt to the specific circumstances of each conflict, Maya replied, her heart pounding but her voice steady. The defenders have successfully transitioned from conventional warfare to popular resistance. Our current strategy is designed to defeat an enemy that no longer exists. Several cadets began whispering among themselves, some with obvious disapproval of Maya's audacity, others with grudging interest in her analysis. Commander Vexthul's observers made notes on their datapads but remained silent, watching the drama unfold without intervention. Enlighten us then, Zareth said with obvious sarcasm. What strategy would you employ in this situation? Maya took a deep breath, knowing that her next words would either establish her credibility or destroy her career prospects. We stop trying to control the population through force and start giving them reasons to support us instead. We establish humanitarian aid programs, rebuild damaged infrastructure, and demonstrate that cooperation with our administration benefits everyone. Appeasement, Zareth spat. You want us to reward rebellion with kindness. Such naivety might be expected from someone of your background. The casual dismissal of her ideas based on her social class ignited something dangerous in Maya's chest. She had endured weeks of condescension and subtle insults, maintaining her cover as a harmless scholarship student. But there were limits to even her patience. Your Highness, Maya said, her voice taking on a harder edge. My background taught me that survival often depends on understanding what people actually want, rather than what you think they should want. The civilians on this planet don't care about your military objectives. They care about safety, food, and a future for their children. Give them those things and they'll stop supporting the resistance. The argument was interrupted by urgent alerts from their reconnaissance units. Kira's forces had launched a coordinated attack against 3 separate supply depots, successfully destroying enough materiel to cripple Zareth's operations for the remainder of the simulation. Impossible, Zareth muttered, studying the damage reports. Our intelligence indicated those facilities were heavily defended. Maya accessed the tactical network and quickly identified the problem. The defenders used civilian evacuation routes to approach the targets. Our security protocols didn't account for insurgents moving through areas we classified as non-combat zones. Then we'll expand our security perimeters to include civilian areas, Zareth decided. That will require reassigning troops from our primary defensive positions, Cadet Blackstone warned. We're already stretched thin across too many objectives. Maya realized they had reached a critical decision point. Zareth could continue pursuing a strategy that was clearly failing, or he could acknowledge the need for a fundamental change in approach. The war game would end within 18 hours, leaving little time for course corrections. Your Highness, Maya said quietly, we have one advantage the defenders can't match: our orbital assets. Instead of using them for bombardment and supply missions, we could use them for humanitarian operations. Medical supplies, food distribution, infrastructure repair. Make the civilian population see us as liberators rather than occupiers. Zareth stared at her for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Around the war room, other cadets waited to see how their commander would respond to such a radical suggestion. The simulation parameters don't include humanitarian operations, Zareth said finally. Our mission is military victory, not social work. Military victory requires defeating the enemy's will to fight, Maya replied. Right now we're strengthening that will with every harsh measure we implement. The defenders are winning because they've convinced the population that we're the greater threat. Commander Vexthul's observers leaned forward slightly, their attention focused on the developing conflict between traditional military doctrine and adaptive strategic thinking. Maya suspected this argument was exactly what the exercise was designed to generate. "Very well," Zareth said at last. "You seem convinced of your approach's validity. I'm placing you in command of the northwestern sector. Implement your humanitarian strategy there and we'll see how effective it proves to be." Maya felt a surge of excitement mixed with terror. Command of an entire sector was an unprecedented opportunity for a first-year cadet, but it also meant accepting full responsibility for the consequences of her strategic theories. "Thank you, Your Highness. I won't disappoint you." As Maya began organizing her new command, she couldn't shake the feeling that this moment represented more than just a training exercise. The galaxy was watching to see whether human strategic thinking could offer alternatives to the conventional military wisdom that had dominated warfare for centuries. The next 18 hours would determine whether Maya's theories about winning hearts and minds could prove themselves against Kira's masterful insurgency campaign. More importantly, they would establish whether a scholarship student from the mining colonies could hold her own against the galaxy's future military leaders. Maya smiled grimly as she reviewed the resources available in the northwestern sector. It was time to show these aristocratic cadets what human innovation looked like when properly applied to seemingly impossible challenges. The real war game was just beginning. Maya's first act as sector commander was to order an immediate halt to all security sweeps in the northwestern region. Her staff officers, 3 second-year cadets who had been assigned to observe her inevitable failure, stared at her in disbelief. "Ma'am," said Lieutenant Cadet Torres, "a human from the inner systems. Suspending security operations will leave us completely vulnerable to insurgent attacks." "No," Maya replied, studying the sector's demographic data on her command display. "Continuing security operations will guarantee insurgent attacks. Right now we're creating enemies faster than we can eliminate them." She activated the sector's communication network and broadcast a message to all civilian frequencies. "Citizens of the northwestern sector, this is Commander Chen of the Occupation Forces. Effective immediately, we are implementing new policies designed to restore normal life to your communities. Medical facilities will be reopened, food distribution will resume, and reconstruction efforts will begin within 24 hours. The message sent shockwaves through both the defending and attacking teams. Kira's resistance network had been planning major operations against northwestern sector targets, but Maya's announcement forced them to reconsider their priorities. Meanwhile, Prince Zareth watched the northwestern sector's activities with growing skepticism. Maya's second initiative was even more radical. Using her orbital assets for supply drops, she began delivering medical equipment and food supplies directly to civilian population centers. Instead of demanding cooperation in exchange for aid, she provided assistance unconditionally and publicly credited local community leaders with organizing the distribution efforts. "This is insane," muttered Cadet Morrison, a vegan aristocrat assigned to Maya's intelligence section. "We're giving away our strategic advantages to people who are actively supporting the enemy. We're demonstrating that cooperation with our administration produces tangible benefits," Maya corrected. "The resistance can offer them ideology and revenge, but we can offer them survival and prosperity." The effects became apparent within hours. Intelligence reports from the northwestern sector showed a dramatic decline in resistance activities, while civilian cooperation with occupation forces increased dramatically. More importantly, Maya began receiving volunteers from the local population who wanted to help with reconstruction efforts. By the simulation's final day, the northwestern sector had become a model of successful occupation governance. Maya's forces faced minimal insurgent activity. Civilian populations were actively supporting reconstruction efforts, and local leaders were beginning to establish cooperative relationships with occupation administrators. The contrast with Prince Zareth's other sectors was stark. Despite their superior firepower and traditional tactics, his forces were bleeding resources to Kira's relentless insurgency campaign. Every harsh measure designed to crush resistance only strengthened civilian support for the defenders. "The simulation results are fascinating," Commander Vexthal announced as the exercise concluded. "We have witnessed 2 completely different approaches to the same strategic challenge, with dramatically different outcomes." The assembled cadets gathered in the main auditorium for the after-action review. Maya found herself seated between nervous scholarship students and confident aristocrats, all of them waiting to learn how their performance would be evaluated. Prince Zareth's conventional approach achieved all initial objectives efficiently and decisively, Commander Vexthul continued. His forces demonstrated excellent tactical coordination and proper application of established military doctrine. Zareth nodded with obvious satisfaction, clearly expecting praise for his adherence to traditional strategies. However, Commander Vexthul's tone shifted. Conventional tactics proved inadequate when the enemy adapted to unconventional warfare. By the simulation's end, Prince Zareth's forces controlled territory but had lost the initiative to determine the conflict's terms. Maya watched as Zareth's expression darkened. Being criticized in front of the entire class was clearly a new experience for the Andromedan prince. Cadet Chen's humanitarian approach achieved something far more significant, Commander Vexthul continued. Her sector not only eliminated insurgent activities, but actually converted enemy supporters into active collaborators. This represents a complete strategic victory rather than mere tactical success. The auditorium buzzed with whispered conversations as cadets processed the implications of Commander Vexthul's assessment. Maya felt a surge of vindication mixed with disbelief. She had actually succeeded in challenging centuries of established military wisdom. However, Commander Vexthul raised his hand for silence. Both approaches demonstrated important limitations. Prince Zareth's strategy would have been highly effective against conventional opposition, while Cadet Chen's approach required resources and time that might not be available in actual combat situations. Maya nodded respectfully, understanding that the lesson was more complex than simple victory or defeat. Military strategy required adaptability and the wisdom to choose appropriate tools for specific circumstances. The Academy's mission is to prepare you for leadership in an uncertain galaxy, Commander Vexthul concluded. Future conflicts will require officers who can think beyond established doctrine when circumstances demand innovation. Today's exercise has identified several cadets who demonstrate that essential flexibility. As the cadets filed out of the auditorium, Maya found herself surrounded by classmates who suddenly viewed her with new respect. Even Kira approached her with obvious curiosity. "That was brilliant strategic thinking," Kira said without her usual condescension. "I didn't expect anyone to find an effective counter to guerrilla tactics, especially not through humanitarian means." "It wasn't really about being humanitarian," Maya replied. "It was about understanding what the civilian population actually wanted and finding ways to provide it. People support whoever gives them the best chance at a decent life." Prince Zareth appeared beside them, his expression unreadable. "Cadet Chen, I owe you an apology. I dismissed your suggestions based on prejudice rather than merit. That was unworthy of an officer." Maya was stunned by the unexpected humility. "Your Highness, your tactical execution was flawless. In a conventional war, your approach would have achieved total victory." "Perhaps," Zareth said thoughtfully, "but as Commander Vexthul pointed out, future conflicts may not follow conventional patterns. I suspect we all have much to learn from each other." That evening, Maya sat alone in her dormitory room, reflecting on the day's events. Her secret remained safe. No one suspected that her strategic insights came from something far more significant than clever thinking or lucky guesses. The modified neural interface hidden beneath her skin contained strategic algorithms that could revolutionize warfare itself. But revealing its existence would raise questions she wasn't ready to answer. For now, she was content to be seen as an innovative thinker who challenged conventional wisdom through natural talent. The Academy's instructors were beginning to notice her potential, her classmates were starting to respect her abilities, and she was learning to navigate the complex social hierarchies that governed galactic military culture. But Maya knew this was only the beginning. The device her father had given her contained secrets that could shift the balance of power throughout the galaxy. When the time came to reveal her true capabilities, she would be ready to show the universe exactly what human ingenuity could accomplish when properly motivated. The war game had established her reputation as someone worth watching. Soon the galaxy would discover that they had been watching someone far more dangerous than they ever imagined. As she prepared for sleep, Maya allowed herself a small smile. The overlooked girl from mining station Zeta 7 was no longer overlooked. And before her academy career was finished, Everyone would understand that underestimating humanity's potential was a mistake no one would make twice.